guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I thought we would do a cozy little chat. I have some hot tea here that I'm really trying not to spill on myself. It's boiling hot, so I'm gonna set this down. Thought we would do just a cozy little chat about books, end of the year, that sort of thing. I'm kind of doing an end of the year book tag, sort of, plus like goals for 2025 surrounding books, so kind of just lumping it all into one video. I have a lot of questions that I pulled from just some other booktubers end of the year book tags, so just kind of pulling random questions, ones that I thought would be fun to answer, and then of course reflect on this year and then talk about goals for next year. So grab a coffee, grab a snack, grab a tea, grab a blanket, let's hang out and let's chat books. At the end of last year, I made a video about my bookish goals for 2024 so that we could reflect on some of those and see if I met them, and yeah. So first goal was to read 90 books, and I actually have surpassed that. I just finished reading my 91st book last night. At one point in the year, I did think I was maybe gonna make it to 100 books, but then I fell into a book slump in November and towards the beginning of December, so that just ended up not happening, which is fine. I'm literally fine with it. I feel like 90 books is so many books. I had a lot going on this year, so I feel very good about the amount of books that I read. Another goal of mine was to read both the ACOTAR series and the Addicted series, which I did read. I wanted to read more fantasy, which I definitely did by reading ACOTAR. I read some other fantasy series as well, so definitely dipped my toe in a lot more into fantasy and found the type of fantasy and romantasy that I love. And then last one was more like classic book talk books, and what I meant by that was like I feel like book talk became really popular in like 2021, and I didn't start reading a ton until end of 2022, so I feel like there were so many books that were so popular in like 2020, 2021 that I just missed. So I had a goal to like go back and read a lot of those, which I feel like I read a lot of those as well. And then I had a list of all of the new releases that I wanted to read, and I read every single one of them except for 1,000 Broken Pieces, which is the second book after 1,000 Boy Kisses. I never got to that one. I do want to read it at some point. Pretty sure it's from the sister's point of view, but just never got around to that one. And I never got around to reading the last book of the Artifacts of Uranus series, Tale of the Heart Queen. It came out at the end of November. I haven't gotten around to it. I do also really want to read that one, so I will get to that right at the beginning of 2025. Like that is a goal of mine, is to get to it in the first like 2 months. And then I also had a lot of rereads that I had wanted to read, and I read all of them. So I feel like I hit a lot of my goals for 2024. I'm very proud of myself. I feel like I had a very good reading year. I read not only a lot of books, but I've read a lot of quality books. I found a lot of new series, a lot of new favorites. So yeah, it was a very good reading year all around. Today, the day I'm filming this, it's only December 14th, so I still have some time to go. Don't worry, I will do a full every book that I read in 2024. I keep wanting to say 2023, it's 2024. I'll do a full video of all the books that I read right at the start of the year. Now let's jump into the questions from the end of year book tag. Okay, first up is a book you wish you could erase your memory of and read again. And I have two here. These were both 5 stars, and these were probably 2 of the more emotional reads that I read this year, and I don't know what it was, but I just fell in love with both of these. The writing style, everything about them. There's such like twists at the end that I kind of saw coming, but like, because now I know that if I read these books again, I know what's gonna happen, which is not a bad thing. I wish I could get that pure reaction again of like how I felt reading this book for the first time. If I could do that, I absolutely would. So first up is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This follows 2 best friends over decades and how their lives change and their relationship as friends. And I just love this book. I love girlhood. I love female friendships. It is such a beautiful story, and it made me absolutely sob, and I really wish that I could experience all of these emotions again for the first time. And then the other one is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I actually just recently read this one, and as soon as I started it, I knew I was going to fall in love with it. Everyone says it is such a good book, and I 100% agree. I fell in love with the characters of the book, the writing of this book, the plot and overall theme of this book. So incredible, so amazing. The writing is absolutely stunning, and I can definitely foresee myself rereading this book at some point, but if I could reread it for like the first time again, I would love that. Then we have a favorite new character, and I feel like I have a lot of characters that I fell in love with this year, but one that really came to mind, especially when we're talking male main character, is Rysand from the ACOTAR series. I read the ACOTAR series at the very beginning of the year. I think I started it like the first week of January, and absolutely fell in love with Rhys. Like, if you've read, you know. And just all of the characters in general, I absolutely fell in love with them. I fell in love with the found family, but like, if we're talking male main character, like, who did this to you, literally is mean to everyone except for you. Like, he's just the perfect male main character. I'm obsessed with him. For a non-fantasy male main character, someone that I am obsessed with was Ford from Wild Love. I remember reading and I was just like giggling and kicking my feet. I just love Ford's character. Like I said, the banter was so good. It had me giggling at kicking my feet, and they were both so good at communication, but especially Ford. Like, there was no miscommunication trope with him. Like, he said exactly what he meant, and I loved that about him. And then for a female main character, I loved Eva from the 7 Days in June. She was such a strong female character. I loved seeing the growth of her character and how over time she went from being a very troubled teen to this incredibly successful writer, single mother. I loved her relationship with her daughter. I thought it was very sweet. I loved her relationship with Shane. She is just someone that cares so deeply, and I feel like I related a lot to parts of her, and I just loved her character. When I was thinking back about some female main characters that really stick out to me, Eva was definitely one of them from this year. Okay, the next question is the most surprising book, both in a good way and then in a bad way. So, we'll start with the bad way. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. That was the very first book I read this year. I actually started it at the end of 2023, but ended it in, I think, on the 1st of this year. And I hated that book. I wanted to like it so bad because everyone's obsessed with Lucy Score, and I could not. Oh my god, the main character, I don't even remember their names. I don't even want to remember their names. They pissed me off so much, especially the male main character. He was so insufferable, and he was just an asshole for no reason. And I was so upset because I genuinely really wanted to like this book. I know so many people love it, but oh my god, I hated that. I hated it. I'm sorry, I'll say it, I hated it. But the most surprising in a good way is The House in the Cerulean Sea. So I knew going into this book that it was more of a cozy fantasy, which I had not really gotten into. I'd really only read like romantasy, so I was not sure how I was going to feel about this. I'd heard really good reviews about it, so I was like going in hopeful, but I really was not sure because it was just a genre of fantasy that I hadn't really dived into, and I ended up absolutely adoring this book. It is the perfect cozy fantasy to read in like the fall winter time. The characters are so special. I love all of the kids in this book. I just really enjoyed learning about Linus's story. He's a little grumpy, he's very stuck in his ways, but he goes to the orphanage and he meets Arthur and all the children, and I just think it is such a sweet story. I just love all these characters so much, and I loved the second book as well. Such a cozy, wonderful read. Next up we have the best and the most disappointing new release. So for most disappointing, it's definitely The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. I never know how to say her last name, but she's the author that wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which I absolutely loved. Everyone loved it. The movie blew up. Like, it is such an incredible book, and so I was so excited when I found out she was releasing another book, and I just could not get behind this one. There was way too much over description, and I just didn't really connect or feel for the characters very much. I was really hopeful considering it was going to be like about them on this wine and food tour throughout Europe. I thought that was going to be fun, but there was just way too much about that and like not enough about the relationship, especially since it was a second chance. I was like so hopeful, but this one just really fell flat for me. And then I want to say the best release is both Wild Love and Wild Eyes, but I already talked about Wild Love, so I'm gonna talk about Wild Eyes now. I am obsessed with Elsie Silver, and I feel like every book she writes, she just continues to get better and better. And this series, the Wild series, what is she even calling this? The Rose Hill series, and the third book comes out next year, which I'm very excited about. This series I feel like is just so perfect. Her writing in it is so incredible. No one does romance and banter quite like Elsie Silver, and I just fell in love with Weston's character, with Skylar's character. I connected to both of them so much, and I just, yeah, this was one of the best books I read this year, and also definitely the best new release of the year. Next is a book or a series that you wish you got to this year, and I have a few. So I already talked about A Thousand Broken Pieces and Tale of the Heart Queen were two new releases that I didn't get around to. And then I have two other series that I was really hoping to get to this year and just didn't have the time. First is Caraval. I have the series now. I have the 3 books. I really want to read that because then I want to read the series that comes after it, which I'm blanking on the name, but you're supposed to read Caraval first. So want to really get to that, hopefully start of the new year. And then I also kind of got to the series. I read the first book of the Heartstopper series. I have all of the books, and I really need to just sit down and read them because they're so quick. Like, you can get through one book in a sitting, like in an hour, because they're graphic novels, so you're mostly just looking at pictures and reading a few words. But I don't know why I haven't sat down and read any of them since the first book. I loved the first book. I thought it was so sweet. But yeah, I definitely need to get to that because I want to watch the series as well. Next up, we have the longest and the shortest book you read. So the shortest book I read was Destroy Me, which is one of the novellas part of the Shatter Me series. I've started the series, I haven't finished it. And that one is 111 pages according to Goodreads. And then the longest book I read was by far A Court of Silver Flames. Let me pull up the exact pages, but I know that one is over 700 pages. Yeah, 757 pages. So I read quite a few long books this year though, like The Third Magnolia Parks was pretty long, but there were a few of the Addicted books that get pretty long, but those ones I feel like don't feel as long because I read them on my Kindle, so I don't have the actual books so they don't seem as long, but read a lot of pretty long books this year, but A Court of Silver Flames was definitely the longest. Next we have Most Emotional Book, and we're gonna throw it back to a book we talked about earlier, Firefly Lane. Like I said, this book had me absolutely sobbing. If there are themes of girlhood and friendship in a book, I'm just gonna fall in love with it. And I feel like I read this at a time in my life where it was just hitting so hard. And yeah, this book absolutely made me sob, and I'm obsessed with it. And I constantly think about this book and the lessons, and it's just, oh, it's so good. Okay. After that, we have the happiest books that you read. And when I was thinking back on like books that were happy or books that made me happy while I read them, I thought of like summer romance books. I think it's just the time in which I'm reading them. They also tend to be a little bit more lighthearted. Even though both of these books do touch on deeper topics, they're a lot more lighthearted. The romance is fun. There's a comedy element to them. So for this, I chose Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer. I just loved this book. I thought it was so fun. I loved the concept. I read this in the summer, and it was just a very fun, happy book. And even though they had some like deeper personal things to go through, I feel like when they were together, they were always having fun, and it just made me happy reading about them. And then same thing for This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I absolutely loved the setting of this book, and I think that was one of the things that made me so happy reading it, was like the summary vibes of this book, just all around good vibes. I really loved the relationship between Felix and Lucy, and like I said, when they were together, I was just happy, and I enjoyed reading their love story. And then the last one I have for this question is Play Along by Liz Tom Ford. I think the reason that this book made me so happy was because of Isaiah and just how much he was obsessed with Kennedy and how he was so like down bad for her, but in the best way. Like, he wanted to be with her so badly and would literally do anything to be with her. And just seeing the way he interacted with her, like, I don't know, just it made me happy. Next up, we have Best Series, and I have two here. Both are fantasy series. First one is ACOTAR. Like I said, read it at the beginning of the year. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I know I was so late to the game in reading it, but it was just genuinely so good, and I cannot wait for book 6. Like, I need Miss Sarah J. Maas to hurry it up, please. Sorry if you can hear my radiator. It's doing something weird. But the other one is the Artifacts of Uranus series by Nisha J. Tooley. Like I said, haven't gotten to the 4th and final book, but the first 3 books I absolutely fell in love with. Such a fun fantasy series if you enjoy romantasy, and especially if you like books like Powerless, like that series, or ACOTAR, I feel like you would really enjoy this. The world building isn't too difficult. I feel like everything is explained super well. I wasn't left like confused a lot of the time, and I love the romance in the story. I love all the different characters. The world is super fun, and I love her writing, and I'm really hoping to read more books from her, which ties into the next question. My favorite new author, and definitely Nisha J. Tooley is on there. I've only read the Artifacts of Arana series, but I know she has a few others and I really want to get to them. Like I said, she is a fantastic fantasy author. She explains things super well. She doesn't make things super complicated, but her books are still a lot of fun. Also, for the first time, I read Krista and Becca Ritchie's books. So I read the Addicted series, which I loved. So much fun. Such a fun series. You really feel like you're watching a reality TV show, but reading it. And it was so entertaining. Obviously, there were parts that were cheesy or a bit much, but it's like, I feel like it's supposed to be that way, but I really enjoyed their writing. And then another author that I read a lot of this year that is kind of a new fave is Elle Kennedy. So I read the Briar U series and the Off Campus series. Again, books that I feel like I was super behind on, but they were so much fun. I love a good sports romance. Again, kind of cheesy at times, but when you're just looking for like an escapism book, and especially an escapism series, like you can just immerse yourself in these characters and feel like you are a part of this found family. Elle Kennedy and Krista and Becca Ritchie do such a good job of creating that sort of atmosphere with their books. And we have Prettiest Cover, and I'm pretty sure I said this during my mid-year wrap-up, and I'm saying the same book because I will never get over this cover, I don't think, but it is The House in the Cerulean Sea. I am just absolutely obsessed with this cover. The colors are stunning. The font, everything about it is so perfect. I really wish I had the edition with the sprayed edges, but other than that, this book is perfect, and I love having this book on my shelf. Like, it truly makes me so happy. Even the spine of this book is just gorgeous, and yeah, I love this book. All right, we are nearing the end. We have 2 more questions. So we have a book that should be made into a TV show or movie, and I'm gonna mention this book again, but The House in the Cerulean Sea, I could see this being such a fun movie. The characters and the fact that all the children are kind of different, like monsters or fairies, like one's a wyvern, I never know how to say it, one is a gnome, like they're all different kind of mystical, magical creatures. So I feel like it would be so fun to see this on screen. I feel like Tom Hanks needs to be Linus. I don't know why, I just envisioned that. And yeah, so if anyone wants to get on this, I would greatly appreciate it. And the other one is the Alice Network, which I don't actually have with me because my mom is currently borrowing it. But that is a World War II and World War I historical fiction. And I just loved that book so much. I thought the history was incredible. I feel like people that are big history buffs would love that as a show or a movie. I feel like it could be probably more of a movie, but I really feel like that would be so well done on the screen. I can envision it in my head now. And last question we have are some favorite new quotes, which I feel like I am not someone that annotates a lot. So when I do annotate, it's like a quote that really hits for me or a book that's really hitting for me. So I'm gonna rattle off a few from some books that I've annotated this year. First up, we have Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. There was a lot that I annotated in this book. There are a few quotes in here that I can't say because they will like give spoilers. So I'm trying to find ones that are not spoilery at all. After all, life seems very long sometimes, but he knows it will go so fast and he doesn't want to miss a moment. A big theme of this book is not taking life for granted and embracing every moment. So I feel like a lot of the quotes that I found in this book that I really loved have to do with that. There's also some cute romancy quotes in here, like he pulls her close and she smells of summer, she smells of time, she smells of home. Oh. Also, part of this book is Addie has lived for 300 years. And so she says, "Do you know how you live 300 years? And when he asks how, she smiles. The same way you live one, a second at a time." There are a lot more in this book, but I'll just leave you with those few. The other book that I have some good quotes out of is Firefly Lane. Again, lots of quotes and themes of friendship in this book. So this says, "That was the promise they made all those years ago, and they believed it would last, believed that someday they'd be old women together sitting in their rocking chairs on a creaking deck, talking about the times of their lives and laughing." Also, when you're reading this book, the context of the quotes I feel like just hits so much harder. As always, Kate was her safety net, her security blanket. With her best friend beside her, she could finally trust herself. She'd spent so much of her life in a rush for the finish line that she'd been left out of breath. If she'd paid a little more attention to the scenery and a little less to the goal line, she might not be here now, a 42-year-old single woman searching for the tattered remnant of a family. I feel like every time I underline a quote, it always has to do with something of like not regretting life and not taking time for granted. Like, Why am I always obsessed with those themes? I don't know. Another book that has some incredible quotes this year is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I'm a huge fan of her writing. I love her writing style so much. I actually made a whole Instagram post on my book Instagram, so if you don't follow that, it's always linked down below, but I made a whole post about some of my favorite quotes from this book because there were just so many good ones. This one says, "To love and for his love to be accepted. Yes, it was in fact painful. The relief of all that compression suddenly, to say the words aloud and hear her saying them, to be loved by her. It was so needed that it actually hurt. And for this he feels a tender, wounding gratitude, a sense of blessing, that he exists simply in this body, in this mind, that he is himself, this one person, rich in priceless resources, which to his conscious mind remain almost infinitely unknown. And nothing will ever bring his father back from the realm of memory into the reassuring, concrete world of material fact, tangible and specific. And how is it possible to accept this or even to understand what it means?" Again, there were a lot more quotes, but I just really loved those. I felt like a lot of those hit. And then there's one specific quote I'm thinking of from 7 Days in June that when I did the reading vlog of this, I mentioned it, and I've continued to think about this quote for so long. This is actually being said by Shane, the main character. He's talking about her character in her book, but she kind of wrote the book about herself. So in turn, he's talking about her, and they both know that. But he says, "By virtue of being a woman, she's stronger. Girls are given the weight of the world, but nowhere to put it down." And I read that quote and it hit me so hard, and I just absolutely loved it. So that is all for the questions. Now we're going to get into my 2025 reading goals. So the big one, the number one question, what is my reading goal for 2025? And I'm going to put it at 100 books. I feel like 100 books is a good point. I don't want to push myself too hard. If I don't get to 100, it's not the end of the world. Last year I did 79. This year I'm currently at 91, probably gonna get a couple more books in, so I'll be close to 100. So I feel like I can do 100. The only reason that I might not be able to is if life gets really busy, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So that is that. Next is a pretty big one, but I feel like I can do it because a lot of the series are shorter, but it's to check off 7 more series from my series list. I have an entire list in my phone of series that I want to read, and there's a lot on there. So I have a goal to check off 7 more. Now, some of them I've already started, so I just need to finish a series, or they're like a duology or a trilogy. So I feel like I can do it, but I don't know, we'll see. Read more literary and historical fiction. I have a couple authors who I really want to read their backlist. Sarah Adams is one. I've read her When in Rome series, but I haven't read her other books, and I know a lot of people love those. I want to read Ashley Poston's backlist. I've only read The 7-Year Slip by her, but I know she has a few others, as well as a new book coming out next year that I would love to read. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've only read a handful of her books, but I want to read more, so definitely have more of her books on my want to read. Annabelle Monaghan, I've not read any books by her, but I've heard really good things about her books, and I feel like they're very summery, so I feel like when summertime comes around, I'm gonna want to read more of her books. And I know she also has a new book coming out in 2025. Lauren Asher is another one. I have only read the first book of the Dreamland Billionaire series, but I want to finish that series and then read the new one that she has out, like the Lakefront Billionaires, is that what it's called? And then the one that's about the F1 racers. I can't remember what that series is called, but she's got a lot of good series that I want to get into as well. Now, I have a list again of all of the new releases that I want to read, and there are a lot. So I'm just going to kind of rattle them off because I don't want this video to be too long, but I'll rattle them off, the date, and yeah, some of these dates might change, but this is what Goodreads is telling me right now. In January, on the 7th, we have Beg, Borrow, and Steal by Sarah Adams, the 3rd book in the When in Rome series. On the 21st, we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which is the 3rd book in the Empyrean series, which is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. February, on the 4th, we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, her new book coming out. February 18th, Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli, I don't know how to say it. She wrote Heartless Hunter, which I have not read, but I want to read that before this one comes out because I've heard really good things about it. And it's only a duology, so that'll be the 2nd book out. Wild Side by Elsie Silver is out on March 4th. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is the next Hunger Games like prequel book, is out on March 18th. I want to do a Hunger Games reread so bad. I think I'm going to try and do that in the new year before this comes out. So maybe I'll make a video about it. But I haven't read Hunger Games since I was literally in 6th grade. So I really want to reread them. Say You'll Remember Me, Abby Jimenez's new book, is out on April 1st. Fearless, the last book in the Powerless trilogy, is out on April 8th. Wild and Wrangled, which is the 4th book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, is out on April 15th. Watch Me by Tahara, is that how you say her name? Tahara Mafi is out on April 15th. This is kind of a spin-off series of the Shatter Me series, which I'm currently reading, and this is about the younger brother. So I haven't even finished the Shatter Me series, but assuming that I enjoy it, I mean, I've been liking it so far, so assuming I enjoy how it ends, it would be fun to start the next kind of spin-off series. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, of course. I mean, I'm gonna read everything Emily Henry writes, so very excited for that. Rewind It Back by Liz Tom Ford, which is the 5th and final book in the Windy City series. That one is out on April 24th. One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune is out on May 6th. Love Arranged by Lauren Asher is out on May 13th. That's the 3rd book in the Lakefront Billionaire, so I need to get to that series before that one comes out. Also, these are all assuming that I liked the other books in the series. If I get to that and I'm like, I actually didn't like the series, then this might get removed, but we'll see. The Love Haters by Catherine Center is out on May 20th. It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan is out on May 27th. Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid is out on June 3rd. She hasn't released a book in like 2 years, I want to say, so I'm very excited for that. Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston is out June 17th. And then there's a new Stephanie Archer book out. She is the author of the Vancouver Storm series, like Behind the Net is the first one. Haven't read those yet. They've been on my want to read list, and there's another book coming out in that series on June 17th called Gloves Off. So that is a lot of books. I have a lot of reading that I need to do in the new year to get through all of these, but I'm so excited. There's just something about the new year that I get so motivated to read, to do a fresh start, to reach all of these goals. So I cannot wait. I hope you guys are excited as well. I hope you are ready to be along for the ride. Please let me know any books that you want to read in 2025. Let me know how your reading year of 2024 went. Answer the questions from this video. I feel like there was a lot going on in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!